Welcome everyone to the Solidarity Center's Climate Week webinar, Heat Stress and Workers, the Union Difference. To all the friends and colleagues joining us from around the world, thank you for being with us. I'm Sonia Mistry, the Solidarity Center's Director for Climate and Labor Justice. The Solidarity Center is the largest US-based international worker rights organization. I hope that through today's conversation, we can offer some insights into the critical role of workers and their unions in advancing the fight for climate justice, the kind of climate justice that recognizes and centers the rights, needs, and aspirations of working people, their families, and their communities. I'm joined by three amazing experts and activists who each bring unique perspectives on the role of worker organizing to address the impacts of the climate crisis. Before I introduce our speakers, I'd like to set the scene for why we felt it was so important to talk about heat stress and worker rights. July 2024 was the 14th consecutive month of record high global temperatures. Institutions like the International Labor Organization, or ILO, have released reports this year outlining the horrific impacts of heat stress on the human body, recognizing that workers worldwide experience heat stress across industries. The choice that most have is to risk their health to earn a living or risk losing their jobs. Heat stress can lead to serious illness, injury, and even death. Just to give a few examples, heat stress affects cognitive functions, impacts the cardiovascular and respiratory systems, and can lead to kidney failure. According to one ILO report, more than 2.4 billion workers, or 71% of the working population, are exposed to excessive heat, resulting in nearly 23 million injuries and about 19,000 deaths annually. It doesn't have to be this way. Instead of just waiting for employers and policymakers to take action, workers around the world are organizing and bargaining, particularly through their trade unions, to protect themselves. While there's growing acknowledgement that heat stress impacts workers, there's surprisingly little recognition of the importance of engaging meaningfully with workers and their organizations to address not only heat stress, but the drivers and impacts of climate change more broadly. Our goal today is to raise awareness about why workers are more resilient to climate impacts when they can organize unions and bargain for improvements in the workplace and beyond. We will ground our conversation in exciting new research and advancements in Cambodia, recognizing that the lessons learned apply globally. For those who might be less familiar with trade unions, I just want to share a couple of key points. Trade unions are legally protected organizations of workers with the mandate to represent and advance the rights of their members in the workplace. Unions enable workers to negotiate with employers to improve working conditions and benefits, and these negotiations lead to binding and enforceable contracts. The role of unions is not limited to the workplace, though. Unions can and do represent the rights of working people in discussions with government institutions and policymakers. Now, with that, let me introduce our amazing panelists. First, we'll hear from Dr. Lori Parsons, who is a leading expert on the social, political, and economic aspects of climate change at Royal Holloway, University of London. With support from the Solidarity Center, Dr. Parsons conducted heat stress research with workers across multiple sectors in Cambodia, and will share his newest findings with us. We'll also hear from Somalai So, who is the Senior Program Officer for Equality, Inclusion, and Diversity in the Solidarity Center's Cambodia office. Somalai will walk us through the concrete steps that unions are taking to protect workers from heat, recognizing in particular the disproportionate impacts on women workers. Rounding out our team of experts is Nash Theismans, who is StreetNet International's organizer for Asia. Nash will talk to us about the 2 billion workers in the workforce who lack basic labor protections, workers who are employed in the informal economy and are often excluded from the right to form or join trade unions. Together, we'll begin a discussion about the link between worker rights and climate justice, a discussion that we hope you'll continue with us going forward. Let's get right into the discussion. Dr. Parsons, first question is for you. Can you tell us a bit about why and how you conducted this heat stress research and walk us through some of your findings?
Yes, should I share my screen in that case? Yes, hang on, let me just do that. Okay. Right. Hello, everybody. So I hope you can all hear me well. I must say it's a huge pleasure to be here discussing this topic because this is very much the real kind of bread and butter, the bread and butter area that I've been working on for some 16 years and more in Cambodia and around Southeast Asia and South Asia. This to me is the absolutely crucial area for climate change policy moving forward to understand this nexus of the environmental and labor. But one of the things that I often find when discussing this area is that people don't necessarily see this as a natural nexus. They don't necessarily see climate change and work as having a key relationship to one another. And I think there's a reason for this in the way that we, as the public, conceptualize the issue of climate change. Now, although climate change is something that is always in everybody's minds in many cases, almost whether or not you're kind of against doing anything about it or you're the most staunch activist and advocate, you've probably got a good idea about climate change and what's going on. However, there's a well-known attention cycle to the issue of climate change. We tend to think about it as a public and as institutions on a regular rolling basis. So it tends to focus in particular around key moments in global policy, such as the UN Framework Convention's COPs, the Conference of the Parties, when nations around the world come together to discuss the issue. And this way in which we talk about climate change is invariably focused on the atmospheric dimensions of climate change. It's focused on warming. It's focused in particular on key statistics around the proportion of carbon in the atmosphere. I put some of the statistics here, as you can see, on the right-hand side, next to the key Conference of the Parties, which have defined climate politics over recent years. And you can see how that atmospheric parts per million of carbon has gone up and up and up. And so that when we think about climate change, it's invariably atmospheric. It's invariably about these numbers. There's no people in the atmosphere, at least not a great many at any one time. So we tend to see this as not necessarily a natural nexus. How do we deal with this issue? It's focused on that, what's known as the mitigation side of the problem, mitigating our carbon emissions over time. There's far less attention on what we do about workers. And there's another reason, I think, for this, which is that many advanced economies like the US, like where I'm based here in the UK or the rest of Europe, tend to view the world of work, the world of industry and of industrial relations as a thing of the past. This is something they see themselves as naturally moving beyond. And this is a feature of the way in which these kind of things are measured. If you look at just within national borders, then you can see that many countries, certainly the UK is a very good example, have deindustrialized very rapidly. So they used to have large industrial populations, they used to have large industrial outputs. And in the case of the UK, more than half of that is gone. So there's been a massive process of industrialization. This means that the planners and policymakers around climate change tend not to be so interested in doing things about workers. Now, one of the key fallacies about the way we think about that nexus of climate change and work is that these wealthy countries, these global northern countries, see this as not their problem because they've moved temporarily past it. In reality, that's not the case at all. In reality, the world of global production has simply moved production away to the global south in many cases. Now, areas in Asia make the vast majority of what many global northern countries produce. And this links us globally through the global economy. It links the world of atmospheric emissions and the world of labor. And I think this is a very important point conceptually for us to understand in the way that we formulate policy. Because it means that when we think about countries such as Cambodia, where we've undertaken this research, we need to be aware of the lived experience of these changes in temperatures. Now, we're well used to seeing these kind of stripe graphs recently, which were actually made by an academic, Ed Hawkins, here in the UK at Reading University. And they kind of clearly demonstrate year by year that change in average temperatures. But when we view this, the reason why this was done in global northern, the need to represent this in this way, it's because to a certain extent, the experience of climate change in many global northern countries is it's ephemeral. It's something which people kind of debate. It's something often for the future in the way that we experience it. It's variable. It doesn't affect our lives in this direct way that you experience when you're actually talking about climate change in the global south. If you talk to a member of the public in a global northern country about climate change, the way that they talk about this is completely different to how global southern country people talk about this. It's an effect, it's a real tangible lived experience for many people in the global south. And so one of the things that has defined the work that I've been doing with Solidarity Centre in recent years has really been a desire to give voice to the workers who experience climate change and to understand that perspective and to bring it out onto the world stage. So the key thing that we've been trying to do, not just in this project, but in the projects that lead up to it, is to bring voice to those comments. So as slightly being blocked here with my own controls, but I believe this says the weather's not wasn't sizzling in the past. It's now not sizzling as it was. Now it's sizzling in a way that it wasn't previously. Nowadays, there's so much flooding and many other things. The weather's changed dramatically. In my opinion, it's because of climate change. And you could go to any factory in Cambodia or in many places around the global south, and you could find workers expressing these same views, the physical experience of heat. And something that I think is also important to recognize is that global southern working industrial populations are not simply passive recipients of these processes. They're not simply experiencing these rising temperatures and not necessarily even understanding why they're happening. And this is what a second worker said, a second unionist said, in my opinion, we should cut down on using gasoline and diesel. We can change to using sunlight instead. It's just my opinion, but I think it will reduce some natural disasters. Well, yes, indeed, as there are the union representative of a candle factory says, this would indeed be a good idea. So global southern populations are aware in a physical and tangible way about what's happening under climate change. They have good ideas about what to do with it, and they have a strong understanding of how it needs to be mitigated. Nevertheless, they are extremely vulnerable to these changes. And in the precursor project to this one called Hot Trends, we observed over and over again that garment working populations were consistently experiencing high proportions of changes to the temperature. Over 50% of garment worker populations said that they had experienced a change in the in extreme temperatures and in the frequency and intensity of flooding in the last 10 years. Within that, over 30% of garment working population said that they'd experienced air pollution within the factory itself and extreme heat in 25% of cases, and 9% of cases that experienced flooding. That means the factory itself flooding. Now, this was something that we were really keen to bring to light as part of our work. And indeed, I think we did do so. This is something that once we brought it out, really resonated with industrial populations. It also resonated with policymakers, because what this essentially showed is that when we've been talking about industrial populations and climate change, we've thought about the mitigation side. We've thought about how we can cut down on those emissions. There's been far less thinking about what we can actually do to protect industrial populations. And when you see numbers like this, it shows you how widespread the experience of these climate-linked impacts is. Now, this takes us back a couple of years. And of course, this was, I think, quite a high impact report, this hot trends report. But what we couldn't show is, particularly in the area of heat that we were most interested in, how extreme was this? What is the actual impact on people? We were only going with people's words, which are very, very important. But to some policymakers and some decision makers, this wasn't enough. And so this brought us into the development of this current project, which sought to bring a new and scientific lens and quantitative data to really measure and get inside the experience of working in industrial production under conditions of extreme heat. Because we know, as Sonia has said, that there is a real kind of health impact of doing this. So I won't go into this in a great deal of detail, but if you work in conditions which are too hot for your body, you have a range of different impacts, and this kind of the ones that are listed here are almost in terms of the order that they happen in. Of course, first of all, you'll get confused. You're more likely to make mistakes. You're more likely to have industrial accidents. Your work will also slow down. You'll have an initial increase in your heart rate over time. That will lead to an increased prevalence of heart problems. Over time, you'll also have an increase in lung problems. And perhaps most troublingly of all for these kind of populations, you have a very high elevated rate of kidney problems. Now, kidney problems in countries which don't have national health services and public health services are an extreme problem, because although they can be treated, it's very expensive to be treated, and there often is no curative option. So this means that families and communities will often will sell everything in order to deal with those options. So a very serious impact for the communities that are affected in this way. And yet, time and again, we see that that this is just an intractable problem. It's very difficult for brands and for policymakers to get away from the idea that we just need to reduce the number of carbon emissions coming from our factories, and that the idea of protecting working populations is just anathema in many cases. So, for example, as one environmental representative of a clothing brand said, there's just too much for factories to do. They're already trying to do the mitigation side, and they're not necessarily getting any more money for this. So, how are they also going to consider what to actually do to protect those workers? And then, as a second union leader said, what I've seen is that there's no preventative measures against this, nothing to help. This seriously affects workers' health and also their economic productivity. I've heard a lot lately that there's no mitigation against the heat. So workers faint, they stay home, they lose their wages. So it's a known problem, and yet it's become incredibly intractable because there simply isn't the impetus to do enough about all of this. And all of this leads us to the question, what is our thermal future? What can we do about rising temperatures under climate change? And what this report really seeks to do is to move away from the idea that we're just all on the kind of same temporal pathway, and to really get into the details of where these areas of extreme heat are. As Sonia's already said, we are rapidly rising past the Paris Agreement. So we've seen 1.5, the first 1.5 degrees C over pre-industrial averages year, which came last year. So we've already smashed through the kind of the targets that we set back in 2016, and temperatures are rising more rapidly than ever. However, a really important thing for us to understand is that we are not all equally in this together. In reality, different parts of the world and different parts of even a relatively geographically small country like Cambodia have huge differences in their experiences of extreme heat. In Cambodia, the central belt around the Tonle Sap area, much so more than the high mountainous areas and the coastal areas, have an extreme prevalence of extreme temperatures. But what we really want to get across, and what this new approach allows us to do, is the world of work, the different sectors in which people work, and to show how work structures the impacts of climate change. Whether you're a construction worker, a seller, a garment worker, or an agricultural worker, this defines how you experience climate change. And that's really, really important for us to get across. But of course, you can't get this across convincingly unless you can actually measure it. And this is where we come in. We have new technology which has allowed us to square this circle of essentially balancing what matters, which we've just talked about, and what's actually measurable, to go beyond just the qualitative, as important as it is, and to really kind of get hard quantitative numbers on these impacts. So up to our study, really, the only way in which you could get data on what's actually happening inside workers' bodies, whether or not they are heat stressed, is to have a medical professional like a doctor or a nurse, and a thermometer gun like this, or a physical thermometer, to go into their ear. Now, this will give you a very accurate reading of what's going on inside workers' bodies. However, it will require the presence of a medical professional anytime you want to collect this data. So obviously that's not going to have much of a close relation to the actual world of work. You can only do it whilst the study is going on. Now, what our study did differently is we used brand new core technology, which workers can actually wear throughout their working day underneath their clothing. It's unobtrusive and designed as sportswear, so it's comfortable. And this tells us their core temperature, their internal core temperature, every minute throughout the day. So this is scientifically a game changer because it allows us to not require any obtrusive disruption of work. Workers can work, even if they're doing heavy manual labor, they can do their work very effectively without needing to think about the devices that we're using. Now, for simplicity, the way in which we're doing this is to tell whether or not workers cross a threshold of 38 degrees. Now, this is a bit of a simplification, but it works well. Essentially, your core temperature should never cross this level. So it should generally stay between 36.5 and 37.5 degrees. That is a healthy core temperature. Whether or not we feel hot outside or inside, our core temperature should adjust by sweating, by our heart rate changing, by pores in our skin opening, because what goes on inside our body has to stay within that range or we start to get very unhealthy very quickly. So if our core temperature goes above that, we have a problem. That's what's known as a dangerous working temperature. It should never happen technically at work. So a lot of the data that we're presenting here is percentages of time that workers cross that threshold. So for example, we may say that workers spent 5% of working minutes or working time over that threshold of 38 degrees, or we may say they spent 10% of working time over that threshold. Essentially, that percentage should be zero from a policy perspective. There's no reason for workers to be spending time under heat stress. And to give you an idea of what 38 degrees means, when I run in a gym, and it's quite a stuffy gym, for half an hour, 5K, I get over 38 degrees towards the end of that run for a couple of minutes, and then my core temperature would drop down again after that. So 38 degrees, unless you have a fever, is a very high level of core temperature. And remember that many of these workers are just sitting down. They're not doing anything physical. So imagine how hot the environment has to be for you to cross that threshold. It's a very unhealthy working environment. So to test all of this, we looked at 788 workers in 6 locations of Cambodia: Phnom Penh, Kampong Som, Phuket, Banteay Meanchey, Kampong Spur, Kampong Chnang, and Svay Rieng. And we looked at this over a period of 6 months. We had a team that went around the country, each of our 6 sites, every month in order that we could collect data across time and space. We combined the data collection tool, the core thermal sensor that we had, with daily surveys in order to understand the specific work that workers were doing. And we also looked at background socioeconomic surveys, so we should understand the kind of economic pressures that they were under. And workers wore these devices for 1 day. Each of our 788 participants wore that for 1 day. So we got a whole cross-section on our 3 sectors of work, which were garment workers, informal food sellers, and transport workers, to get a cross-section of the different sectors of the Cambodian economy. And one of the things that we find looking at, and this is kind of important background, is that even in a small geographical area, different provinces of Cambodia experience peak temperatures at different times with differing intensity. So this is very important if you're formulating heat stress policy, is that even within this relatively small area, a place like Kampong Spur in the center of Cambodia, for example, experiences a much higher increase in ambient temperature in May than do alternative provinces where large parts of many industries are based, such as Kampong Som. And actually, the month in which you get the highest ambient temperature depends on the place. So we need a lot more nuance in understanding where heat stress is. And this is what this project really is all about nuance and targeting of our approaches. So one of the key sectors that we looked at was the garment sector. And what we see, I think, a really key important policy, a really important finding for policy purposes, is that actually garment workers who were experiencing heat stress have a really significantly reduced productivity. So whereas garment workers not experiencing heat stress made 87% of their target on average, garment workers experiencing heat stress produced only 61% of their target. So there's a more than 30% difference in the productivity of garment workers who are heat stressed and those that aren't. Now, the reason that we emphasize this is not just because garment workers are only producing machines and we shouldn't worry about their health. It's because there is a cost to not fixing this problem. There's a very high cost. If you fix the problem and you don't put garment workers in unhealthy temperatures, then they will be more productive for you and you will make your money back. So in terms of selling this to industry, the importance of doing something about it, then we can see that there's a very clear incentive. Now, this graphic breaks down the various sectors within the garment sector into different areas. So we have ironing, packing, sewing, finishing, and quality control. These are the main areas within the Cambodian garment sector. And this percentage again tells you the proportion of time that garment workers are spending under dangerous heat stress. You can see that in certain sectors like ironing, garment workers are spending on average over 5% of their working time. So if they do a 100-hour week, which many do, 5 hours of that time is spent at unhealthy core temperatures, to say nothing of the time that's spent at like 37.9. This is just when it's crossed into an officially dangerous territory. And this again, these workers are sitting down. So just imagine how hot these environments have to be for workers to face that level. Now, of course, we didn't only look at the garment sector, we also looked at informal food sellers. And as we can see here, different types of work that informal food sellers do have a different risk of heat stress. So whereas we see, for example, selling in a shop is only about 1% of heat stress, still far too high, it has to be said. Buying supplies, for example, has almost 5% of working time over a safe temperature threshold. And driving, we saw to be a very high risk area of informal work. So again, these kind of data, as they do in the garment sector, allow us the detail that we need to target our interventions, to recognize who is most vulnerable to heat stress, when they are most vulnerable, and where they are most vulnerable. We also see, for example, that heat stress amongst informal sellers peaks at a certain time, and actually amongst informal food sellers, there's a huge increase in the vulnerability to heat stress in May, for example. And we expect that this is because May is when you get the combination of heat and humidity, which particularly affects workers who are working outside, such as informal sellers. And again, this isn't the case in every sector. It's important to know for each particular sector so that we can target our interventions. So even informal sellers, again, often their own boss to a greater or lesser extent, and working outside, are experiencing up to 5% of working time at dangerous heat levels in May in Cambodia. Now, for transport workers, we can see that this is quite different. So transport workers were actually, of this group, the most vulnerable to heat stress, where this is something we didn't necessarily expect, the extent to which these transport workers, and again, these are mostly drivers, mostly passenger drivers, such as motorbike, tuk-tuk type workers who transport passengers. And we see that in that February, March, April period, between 5 and 8% of working time at unsafe core temperatures. These are very, very high levels, especially in March. And this demonstrates a clear need to target some interventions for transport workers, especially in those key dangerous months. What we also see is that there is a relationship between how hot the ambient temperature gets and how each sector responds to it. So we talk a lot about very hot days and the very hot days that are coming in the future and in the present. This is a very important way of looking at it. But depending on where you work, your vulnerability to hot days is actually quite different. You can see here that although garment workers, shown in the top line here, are somewhat responsive to the ambient temperature, they're less responsive, they're more vulnerable actually to their local environment, i.e. what's going on in the factory, like how that environment is managed because they're inside. Whereas if you look at transport workers, they're very responsive to the external temperature. So if it's a low kind of what's known as wet bulb global temperature that combines heat and humidity, if that's low, then transport workers only experience 1.7% of their working time above a safe threshold. On hazardously hot days, that goes up to 11.4% of their working time. This is absolutely huge on an average level, because you can imagine that a lot of this is coming from certain individuals that are really, really heat stressed. And this is a major health issue for those workers themselves. So the key question, of course, that everybody's here for is, why are unions an effective solution to all of this? And this is one of the key findings, I think, from this study, is that we've not only found the problem, but to a certain extent we've found that unions are a hugely effective solution in this case. And that comes through incredibly strongly in the data. So one thing that we found, perhaps we were surprised by the extent to which was the case, is that individual actions, so where workers are taking individual actions on themselves, these are actually not effective in terms of there's no statistically significant difference when workers said they did this for themselves, like wearing lighter clothing, using a hand fan, finding a cooler place to work, or drinking cold water or seeking shade. They don't work very well on a statistical level when workers are just doing that for themselves. However, nevertheless, what we do see is that there is a clear evidence that workers are aware of when they are excessively hot. So just because they're not good at dealing with their heat on an individual level, they do know when they are hot. So we can see quite clearly in the data that if a worker says, I am excessively hot, they're more than twice as likely to have their core temperature over that 38-degree dangerous threshold. So workers are good judges of their own exposure to heat, even if individually they're not very good at mitigating it. Now, what we found as really the key statistic of all of this is that workers who are members of unions experience considerably and really quite significantly lower levels of heat stress than workers who are not members of unions across all three sectors. So whereas if you're not a member of a union, you experience over 3% of working time under heat stress on average. If you are a member of a union, you experience just 1.7% of working time under heat stress. And this is controlled for all of these different sectors, and actually more effective in some of these informal sectors like transport and informal selling, where it makes a really, really big difference to workers themselves. Within factories, we can see that there are particular activities that unions can do that really have a massive impact on the level of heat stress that workers are experiencing. So, for example, if you have if you work in a factory and your union negotiates with the factory over the issue of heat stress, then on average, your workers only experience and only spend 0.6% of their time under dangerous heat stress. If you don't have a union that does that, then on average, the workers in that factory spend 2.3% of their time under dangerous levels of heat stress. This is a 3/4 reduction just from the simple thing of having a union that advocates for you about heat stress in your garment factory. And there are specific things that can be done in relation to this, such as taking longer breaks. Again, this is something that unions can advocate for. If your union is able to advocate for you taking longer breaks, then you reduce your level of heat stress by 84%. The length of a break is very, very important. 5 minutes does not cut it. This is something that we clearly see from our data. And even simple things like providing advice on heat mitigation reduces the number of minutes spent under heat stress by about 37%. Providing information to workers about when temperatures are expected to be dangerous so that they can take mitigating measures or they can work with unions to reduce that kind of exposure. Again, a 33% reduction in the incidence of heat stress. These are all practical things that unions can do. And to bring this all back together, I think what this above all tells us is that workers and people in many of these incredibly heat-stressed environments are experts in their own lived experience of heat. But that doesn't mean that they are individually capable of necessarily dealing with this, because of course it depends on the sector they're in. They don't necessarily have access to the right information. And in some cases, such as in garment factories, you just don't have, as an individual, the capacity to change your environment to the extent that you can do as part of a union. So this is what workers say about these kind of conditions. In the past, workers could sit and sew the whole time, but now they cannot work all the time. They have to wash their face. It's very hot and it makes us sick. Like my husband, he's always sick. And as a food seller said, when it's hot, it makes me sick like a headache. When today I was fine in the morning, but by the time it got to 3 p.m., I felt unwell and dizzy and I felt like I was going to throw up. When I felt unwell, it comes suddenly. When it's hot, it makes us sick and unwell. Finally, as a tuk-tuk driver, Dara said, my energy is lower than before. When the weather is hot, I find it hard even to breathe. And what all of this should show us above all is that a key neglected area in the whole sphere of climate change policy has been the capacity of workers to collectively organize to adapt to the challenges that they face. This is a hugely effective, low cost, and important way in which we can adapt to these challenges. And it's something which I very much hope will be rolled out and become a default area of policy in the management of heat stress in the global factory worldwide. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Parsons. These are really powerful findings. And as someone who's been a labor activist my entire adult life, this data is very validating, honestly. So thank you for walking us through the data. I'm sure that this has given our audience a lot of food for thought, and I expect we'll have many, many questions. I'm going to turn it over to Somalai. Somalai, Dr. Parsons clearly demonstrated that unionized workers are able to mitigate the impacts of heat stress more successfully. Can you share your experiences of how unions are taking concrete steps to address climate change impacts in Cambodia?
So, good morning and good evening from Cambodia. I'm Somalai, so thank you so much. So, you have opportunity for me to I will speak my sister will be translate. Yeah. ចាជាការពិតនៅអ្វីដែលLori គាត់បានលើកឡើងនៅក្នុងបរិបទនៅប្រទេសកម្ពុជាយើងឃើញថាជាទូទៅវត្តមានសហជីពវាពិតជាមានសារៈសំខាន់ណាស់ក្នុងការជួយនៅក្នុងកត្តាការងារនៅក្នុងប្រទេសកម្ពុជាយើងថាតើសហជីពវត្តមានសហជីពនឹងយើងជួយបានអីខ្លះនៅកន្លែងការងារជាពិសេសតកតងទៅនឹងកិច្ចការងារនៅក្នុងតកតងទៅនឹងភាពតានតឹងនៃកម្ដៅនឹងតែម្ដងយើងដឹងថាបច្ចុប្បន្ននេះនៅក្នុងប្រទេសកម្ពុជាវាមានទទួលនៅផលលំបាកជាច្រើនតកតងទៅនឹងបញ្ហាប្រឈមផ្នែកផ្លូវច្បាប់យើងឃើញថាទោះបីជាមានច្បាប់អនុសញ្ញាអន្តរជាតិមួយចំនួនតកតងនឹងសេរីភាពសហជីពដែលសហជីពក្នុងការបញ្ចេញមតិក្នុងការបង្កើតក្នុងការចូលរួមក្នុងការមានសិទ្ធិចរចាជាសមូហភាពក៏ដោយប៉ុន្តែនៅការអនុវត្តជាក់ស្ដែងនៅមានបញ្ហាប្រឈមដែលជាកត្តាយើងឃើញថាសូម្បីតែលោក Lori គាត់បានលើកឡើងថាកន្លែងដែលមានសមាជិកសហជីពប្រសើរជាងដែលកន្លែងកម្មករដែលមិនមែនជាសមាជិកសហជីពអានេះយើងឃើញមួយយើងឃើញជាផ្នែកមួយចាហើយនៅក្នុងនោះថាតើសហជីពយើងបានចូលរួមវិធានសាស្ត្រហើយសហជីពយើងបានធ្វើអីខ្លះជួយទៅដល់បងប្អូនកម្មករចាជាការពិតនៅកន្លែងការងារប្រសិនបើមានសហជីពហើយសហជីពដើម្បីអាចជួយបងប្អូនកម្មករបាននោះតែសហជីពមានកាតព្វកិច្ចនិងទូនាទីក្នុងការចូលតុចរចាចាចូលតុចរចាហ្នឹងយើងឃើញថាតកតងទៅនឹងការចូលតុចរចាជាទូទៅនៅផ្នែកច្បាប់យើងមានផលលំបាកក្នុងការទទួលបានឧទាហរណ៍ថាកន្លងមកដែលខាងមជ្ឈមណ្ឌលសាមគ្គីភាពដែលយើងធ្វើការកន្លងមកជាមួយដៃគូសហជីពជាបទពិសោធន៍ជាក់ស្ដែងផលលំបាកពេលខ្លះសហជីពដែលគាត់ទទួលបាននៅភាពគេហៅថាជាដំណាងបំផុតនៅកន្លែងការងាររបស់គាត់ដើម្បីទទួលបានសិទ្ធិក្នុងការចរចាផ្ដាច់មុខនោះតែសហជីពនឹងមានភាពជាតំណាងបំផុតនៅកន្លែងអញ្ចឹងបញ្ហារបស់សហជីពបញ្ហាដែលគាត់ជួបប្រឈមនោះគឺការរារាំងពីសំណាក់ក្រុមហ៊ុនដែលមិនរារាំងមិនឲ្យសហជីពមានភាពជាតំណាងបំផុតក្នុងការចរចាផ្ដាច់មុខនៅកន្លែងហ្នឹងចាអានេះជាកត្តាមួយទៀតយើងឃើញថាក៏មានការរារាំងនឹងជំទាស់ពីភាគីខាងនយោជកដែរជំទាស់រារាំងពីភាគីនយោជកហ្នឹងអញ្ចឹងយើងឃើញថានយោជកក៏គាត់គិតវេះធ្វើយ៉ាងណាអត់ចង់ចូលតុចរចាហើយមួយទៀតអញ្ចឹងចំពោះដែលសហជីពដែលមានភាពជាតំណាងបំផុតហើយសហជីពខ្លះដែលគាត់អត់ទាន់បានមានភាពជាតំណាងបំផុតនោះគឺនយោជកហ្នឹង គាត់សហការជាមួយគាត់បង្កើតសហជីពខ្លួនឯងទៀតសហជីពដែលបង្កើតដោយយោជកអញ្ចឹងវាផលលំបាកមួយទៀតចា៎ហើយកន្លងមកទៀតយើងឃើញថាយើងធ្វើការផ្ទាល់ជាមួយនឹងសហជីពប្រហែលជា5-6រោងចក្រនេះ5ទៅ6រោងចក្រមាននៅក្នុងវិស័យកាត់ដេរហើយនៅក្នុងក្រុមហ៊ុនហើយក៏ដូចជាខាងជួសជុលប្រាសាទដែរហើយក៏រោងចក្រស៊ីម៉ងអីដែរអញ្ចឹងយើងឃើញថាខ្ញុំលើកឧទាហរណ៍ជាក់ស្ដែងមួយតែម្ដងអានេះជាឧទាហរណ៍ជាក់ស្ដែងដែលបងប្អូនកម្មករនិងសហជីពជួបប្រទះយើងឃើញថាយោជកគាត់ព្យាយាមក្នុងការធ្វើយ៉ាងណាមិនឲ្យសហជីពទទួលបានភាពជាម្ដងបំផុតទោះបីជាសហជីពខិតខំប្រឹងប្រែងយ៉ាងណាក៏ដោយចាហើយស្រដៀងគ្នាដែរមានករណីមួយទៀតយើងឃើញថារោងចក្រនោះខ្លះទៀតនោះប៉ុន្តែម្ដងគាត់បានភាពជាម្ដងបំផុតយោជកគាត់ពន្យាពេលក្នុងការចូលតុចរចាតាមរយៈបកប្រែពីភាសាខ្មែរទៅភាសាចិនអញ្ចឹងគាត់ពន្យាពេលអត់ឲ្យសហជីពមានឱកាសក្នុងការចូលតុចរចាហើយមិនខុសគ្នាប្រហែលទេមានករណីស្តៀងគ្នាពី4ទៅ5រោងចក្រទៀតស្តៀងគ្នាដែរដូចគ្នាយុទ្ធសាស្ត្របនយោជកគឺគាត់ព្យាយាមគ្រប់មធ្យោបាយក្នុងការធ្វើយ៉ាងណាក៏ដោយដើម្បីពន្យាពេលឬក៏រារាំងមិនឲ្យសហជីពចូលតុចរចាបាននេះជាចំណុចដែលជាក់ស្ដែងជាការពិតសហជីពព្យាយាមចង់បាននៅគេហៅថាកិច្ចព្រមព្រៀងរួមមួយនៅពេលក្នុងវិស័យការងារគឺនៅពេលដែលមានសហជីពមានលក្ខខណ្ឌប្រសើរហើយសហជីពដែលហ៊ានគេហៅចរចាដើម្បីឈានទទួលបានអនុសញ្ញារួមហេតុតែល្អទៀតក្នុងការជួយទៅដល់ឬក៏កិច្ចព្រមព្រៀងរួមដើម្បីជួយទៅដល់បងប្អូនកម្មករមិនថាសមាជិកសហជីពហើយនិងកម្មករមួយចំនួនដែលមិនមែនជាសមាជិកសហជីពក៏គាត់ទទួលបានដែរអញ្ចឹងយើងឃើញថាបញ្ហាជាក់ស្ដែងដែលពួកគាត់ជួបប្រទះផ្ទាល់ដែលជាអ្វីដែលខ្ញុំលើកនេះជាឧទាហរណ៍ជាក់ស្ដែងដែលបងប្អូនកម្មករដែលសហជីពជួបប្រទះហ្នឹងអញ្ចឹងទោះបីជាមានការរារាំងពីគេហៅថានយោជកនិងខាងក្រសួងពាក់ព័ន្ធក៏ដោយក៏សហជីពទោះបីជាមិនបានចរចាជាកិច្ចព្រមព្រៀងធំមួយមែនអញ្ចឹងសហជីពប្រមាណរោងចក្រដែលយើងធ្វើការជាមួយនេះគឺគាត់តែព្យាយាមធ្វើជាកិច្ចព្រមព្រៀងតូចដើម្បីដោះស្រាយបញ្ហាបន្ទាន់ជាពិសេសកំឡុងពេលនេះខ្ញុំគ្រប់គ្រងនៅអ្វីដែលលោកឡរីបានលើកឡើងដែរអញ្ចឹងយើងឃើញថានៅប្រទេសកម្ពុជាមួយរយៈនេះគឺកម្ដៅឡើងខ្លាំងហើយក្ដៅមែនទែននៅតាមបណ្ដារោងចក្រភាគច្រើនគឺកម្ដៅឡើងខ្លាំងអញ្ចឹងហើយដើម្បីដោះស្រាយនៅបញ្ហាបន្ទាន់របស់បងប្អូនដែលជាតម្រូវការចាំបាច់របស់បងប្អូនកម្មករសហជីពទាំងប្រមាណហ្នឹងគាត់ធ្វើជាកិច្ចព្រមព្រៀងតូចមួយជាមួយរោងចក្រដើម្បីដោះស្រាយនៅបញ្ហាទាំងអស់ហ្នឹងហើយយើងឃើញថាទោះជាយ៉ាងណាយើងសបញ្ជាក់ថាសហជីពដើម្បីជួយទៅដល់កម្មករសហជីពពិតជាចង់បាននៅការដោះស្រាយនៅគេហៅថាចរចានៅអនុសញ្ញារួមឬក៏កិច្ចព្រមព្រៀងរួមដើម្បីជួយដល់កម្មករក៏ដូចជាសមាជិកសហជីពនិងកម្មករទាំងអស់នៅក្នុងរោងចក្រដែរចា៎ខ្ញុំមានប៉ុណ្ណឹងមានសំណួរបន្តទៀតខ្ញុំនឹងបន្តទៅទៀតចា៎អរគុណ
Sonia, I think that would be great if you could walk us through what is in the heat stress agreements that have been negotiated and how the unions got those heat stress agreements. That I think that would be really helpful.
ចាអរគុណច្រើនជំនាញតកតងទៅនឹងចំណុចដែលគាត់ចរចាជាការពិតក្នុងការទាមទាររបស់សហជីពគាត់ដាក់ទៅច្រើនប៉ុន្តែដោយសារមានការគាត់ដាក់ទៅច្រើនចំណុចហើយចំណុចខ្លះដាក់ទៅច្រើនហើយគាត់មិនជារីករាយក្នុងការផ្ដល់ឲ្យជាពិសេសតកតងទៅនឹងបញ្ហាភាពតានតឹងនៃក្តៅនិងការនៃការបម្រើបញ្ហាបម្រែបម្រួលអាកាសធាតុទាំងអស់នេះជាខុសចែងដែលគាត់ដាក់នៅក្នុងហ្នឹងហើយយើងឃើញថាខ្ញុំដាក់បញ្ជាក់បន្តិចតកតងទៅនឹងរោងចក្រមួយចំនួនដែលគាត់ដាក់ទៅហ្នឹងគាត់លើកឡើងអំពីបញ្ហាថានៅពេលដែលមានកម្ដៅឡើងទៅដល់35ព្រោះអី នៅប្រទេសកម្ពុជានៅតាមបណ្ដារោងចក្រខ្លះនៅ35កន្លែងខ្លះ35ចុះក្រោមចាត់ទុកថាកម្ដៅសម្រាប់នៅតាមបណ្ដារោងចក្រគេថាជាកម្ដៅធម្មតាអញ្ចឹងនៅពេលដែលអញ្ចឹងគាត់ដាក់តចាថាកម្ដៅ35ចុះក្រោមបើលើសពី35សូមឲ្យរោងចក្រហ្នឹងបើកនៅគេហៅថាប្រព័ន្ធកង្ហារទឹកដើម្បីជួយកាត់បន្ថយភាពគេថាក្តៅនៅក្នុងរោងចក្រនឹងតែម្ដងនេះចំណុចទី1ហើយចំណុចមួយទៀតតកតងទៅនឹងនៅពេលដែលក្តៅខ្លាំងហើយប្រើកង្ហារឡើងហើយនៅអត់សូវមានប្រសិទ្ធភាពសូមឲ្យបងប្អូនកម្មករនឹងឈប់សម្រាកក្នុងចក្រចន្លោះពី10ទៅ15នាទីចា៎អានេះអ្វីដែលពួកគាត់បានដាក់ស្នើទៅហើយក្នុងនោះក៏យើងឃើញថាពេលខ្លះចំណុចខ្លះទៀតសហជីពក៏មានការចរចាតាក់ទងទៅនឹងដាក់សូមឲ្យក្រុមហ៊ុននឹងដាក់ឧបករណ៍ព្រោះអីក្រុមហ៊ុនតែងតែនិយាយថាមើលថាវាក្តៅមិនខ្មិចអញ្ចឹងសហជីពចរចាជាមួយក្រុមហ៊ុនហ្នឹងសូមដាក់ឧបករណ៍ទៅគ្រប់ទីកន្លែងឲ្យកម្មករបានឃើញថាឥឡូវនេះកម្ដៅវាឡើងពិតជាប៉ុណ្្នេះមែនហើយតើកង្ហារឡើងរចនាសម្ព័ន្ធដូចជាផ្លិតទឹកហ្នឹងតើគ្រប់គ្រាន់ទៅដល់ទប់ទៅនឹងកម្ដៅដែលបងប្អូនកម្មករជួបប្រទះអត់ចា៎អញ្ចឹងយើងឃើញថាមានចំណុចជាច្រើនទៀតដែលសហជីពដាក់ចរចាហើយភ្ជាប់ពីនឹងដែរជាមួយលោកស្រីជំនាញថាតើម្លងពេលចរចាហ្នឹងមានឧបសគ្គហើយតើសហជីពគាត់ប្រើយុទ្ធសាស្ត្រអីខ្លះចាជាការពិតតែងតែជួបឧបសគ្គជាច្រើនដែលខ្ញុំបានលើកឡើងខាងដើមហ្នឹងពេលខ្លះនៅពេលដែលជួបបញ្ហាអញ្ចឹងហើយភាគីយោជកមួយចំនួនគឺគាត់មិនព្រមដោះគេហៅថាដោះស្រាយនៅបញ្ហាទាំងអស់ហ្នឹងឯងបែរជាគិតវេះមិនចូលតបចរចាពជាពេលហើយគាត់គិតតែពីផលចំណេញគាត់អត់បានគិតថាតើប៉ះពាល់ទៅដល់សុខភាពរបស់បងប្អូនកម្មករយ៉ាងណាខ្លះអញ្ចឹងភាគីសហជីពហ្នឹងគាត់ប្រើយុទ្ធសាស្ត្រឆ្លាតវៃក្នុងការធ្វើយ៉ាងណាទាញឲ្យយោជកចូលតបចរចាតាមរយៈគិតថានៅពេលដែលយោជកគាត់ចូលតបចរចាគឺប្រយោជន៍ទៅដល់ភាគីយោជកនឹងបានច្រើននៅពេលដែលឃើញថាមិញបទបង្ហាញរបស់លោក Lori គាត់លើកឡើងហើយថានៅពេលដែលមានការកម្ដៅកើនឡើងខ្លាំងអញ្ចឹងទៅធ្វើឲ្យបន្ថយនៅផលិតភាពអញ្ចឹងហើយដែលជាយុទ្ធសាស្ត្រដែលសហជីពគាត់តែងតែប្រើគាត់អត់លើកអំពីផលលំបាកឯងគាត់លើកខ្លះដែរប៉ុន្តែគាត់លើកអំពីយុទ្ធសាស្ត្រថាពីផលចំណេញនៅពេលដែលយោជកសហការល្អធ្វើការជាមួយសហជីពអញ្ចឹងទទួលបានផលចំណេញអីផលិតផលល្អហើយមានការកើនឡើងនៅគេហៅថាផលិតផលដែលគាត់ផលិតបាននឹងច្រើនទៀតអានេះជាយុទ្ធសាស្ត្រមួយដែរមួយផ្នែកហើយមួយផ្នែកទៀតយើងឃើញថាសហជីពតែងតែយុទ្ធសាស្ត្រគេហៅថាឈ្នះទាំងអស់ទាំងសងខាងបានន័យថានៅពេលដែលយើងសហការធ្វើការគឺធ្វើឲ្យរោងចក្រយើងមានកេរ្តិ៍ឈ្មោះល្អក៏ដូចជាផលិតផលយើងល្អហើយក៏មានការបញ្ជាទិញច្រើនពីអ្នកបញ្ជាទិញនេះជាផ្នែកជាយុទ្ធសាស្ត្រមួយដែរដែលសហជីពតែងតែប្រើហើយយើងឃើញថាទោះបីជាមានការកិច្ចវេះពីសំណាក់នយោជកក៏ដោយក៏សហជីពនៅតែបន្តនៅការបញ្ចុះបញ្ចូលចា៎អរគុណច្រើន
Thank you so much, Somalai. It's really helpful to have concrete examples of how unions are actually negotiating over heat stress agreements, understanding that longer breaks are helpful, having cooling systems in place, and the kinds of arguments that unions are making with factory owners to actually get these heat stress agreements in place. So thank you for sharing some of those examples with us. I'm going to turn it over to Nash. Nash, Somalai describes some very practical ways that unions are taking action to protect workers from climate change impacts in the workplace and beyond. And you work with workers in the informal economy, such as the street vendors that Dr. Parsons talked about. And I mentioned in my opening that 2 billion workers are employed in the informal economy. How do you see this impacting the ability of workers to organize and bargain for workplace improvements even beyond Cambodia?
Thanks, Sonia. Let me begin by first saying thank you to the Solidarity Center for this opportunity, and because of the work you do that actually also helps us do our work, because you strengthen unions. And the same gratitude goes, of course, to Dr. Parsons. One of the key challenges we face in the sector is that we don't always have data to support our claims. So in other words, we have a lot of anecdotal data from our members, but it helps to have this kind of report that's actually based on real science, which we can use to advocate for our sector. But having said that, I think it's good to first introduce our audience to who we're referring to when we talk about the informal economy. So the first thing I want you to know is that it exists alongside the formal economy. But what the informal economy covers are economic activities that occur outside of government regulation. So unregistered businesses, for example, and usually these enterprises are small scale, unregistered businesses, or people who work with no formal contracts or benefits like health insurance and job security. Who are these informal economy workers, you might ask? So Sonia mentioned earlier these 2 billion workers, which, to give you an idea, is actually 61% of the global workforce. And when I first heard this statistic, when I started my work at StreetNet 4 years ago, I was really surprised, because it means that informal workers generate well over half of the employment worldwide, and yet they're the most unrepresented in spaces where labor and the future of work are discussed. So there are many workers in the informal economy, including gig workers, for example, or food delivery workers. But looking at the urban informal employment, the common sectors that we work with who are organizing are street vendors, home-based workers, domestic workers, and waste pickers. You'll find that all of these categories of workers have their own organizations, global organizations that are democratically organized and also led by workers themselves. So I represent one section of this, which is the street vendors, hence our name StreetNet. The other nets are the home-based workers, HomeNet International, IDWF, representing domestic workers, and then Global Rec, which refers to the waste pickers. So I saw also in the chat earlier that somebody asked about gender and if there's any gender component when we talk about these impacts in the informal economy. And for me, it's important to note that in developing countries, at least majority of the workers that we work with are women, which means that the kinds of policies that we're trying to advocate for also have to respond to their gendered needs. And this can come in the form of things like if you don't have unemployment or if you don't have maternity leave, obviously it really affects those in our sector who are women and who need these kinds of services. So I've already touched a bit on what the challenges are, but to give you a broader example, because what Somalai mentioned earlier is really the experience of workers who are part of unions, but who are usually in formal employment. For us, the challenge is a bit different. First of all, most of the workers in our sector are not even recognized as workers. They're often categorized misleadingly as self-employed people. And because of this, they're really excluded from enjoying labor and social rights, like having adequate social protection in the form of unemployment benefits, maternity leaves, pensions, for example. So all the things that you enjoy, all the rights you enjoy as a worker don't necessarily apply to our sector. This non-recognition also exposes many of our members to violence and harassment by police and local authorities. So this is a typical case for street vendors. Their goods are confiscated. And in the worst of cases, they're also attacked and imprisoned. Because again, they're also trying to negotiate space in cities, for example, where they can work safely. And of course, we also have the stigma that the sector faces. People have called the sector the shadow economy. But if you've worked in Asia, like my colleagues have, there is no hiding street vendors. They're there. You see them. So they're not working in the shadows. And most often, the people who engage in these activities are people who cannot find work in the formal economy. So on top of all this, another challenge is that because the work doesn't happen in the safety of offices, it's crucial that they get to negotiate also for safe working conditions that allow them to work and be protected against this violence and the very real dangers posed by the climate emergency that we're facing. Uh, you can imagine also that in terms of organizing, this is a bit challenging. Often workers in the informal economy are not represented in spaces that matter to them. I imagine if our cities are being planned without proper consultation with those living and working there. But then again, maybe we don't need to imagine this because this is the reality that we face. So all of these challenges really impact the capacity of our members to organize and negotiate directly with local authorities. Particular to the climate crisis, I think it's good to mention also that it impacts street vendors and other informal workers in the following ways. First, they're exposed to extreme heat, as Laurie ably demonstrated. You also have issues like forced migration and displacement. And if you are a food seller, for example, as in the case of the research, the destruction of goods that could potentially that they could potentially sell, like fresh food and vegetables, is affected, so that their access to the products that they sell is interrupted. And what this boils down to is that our workers are now exposed to risks and hazards at work, and that their livelihoods are negatively impacted as well. And it's good to also remember that people who want to work in this sector are concerned mostly with their survival. And so in terms of organizing, all of these challenges add a significant layer to the kind of consistency of having meetings, for example, and consultations. That it makes organizing much more challenging than if you did it, let's say, in a factory where there is a shared space and we are all together and we can speak to one another. This year alone, these challenges have been felt by our workers in Nepal, India, Bangladesh, Kenya, and also Brazil, because all of these places were impacted by extreme heat and the unprecedented flooding. So I think the point I'm trying to make here is also that when people are busy recovering, for example, from health complications due to heat stress or rebuilding their homes after floods, there's really so much pressure on independent organizations to be able to support them and their needs. So it's quite difficult to organize. But having said that, to answer Sonia's question about how do informal economy workers cope with all these challenges, necessity, I guess, is the mother of invention. They organize using whatever means that they have at their disposal. It's heartening to know that they're able to exchange information. They leverage technologies using WhatsApp, for example, to exchange information and strategize with one another. And they really strive to work in a more united way, either through the regions or through specific issues like extending social protection to the sector. So our sector may not be the most sophisticated or organizationally, they may not be the most sophisticated, but they're really making strides, pushing local and national authorities to take their issues seriously. So in StreetNet International, we have a global presence of 56 affiliated organizations in Africa, Asia, the Americas, and Europe. And these orgs are either national unions, federations, municipal associations, or alliances, and they all really struggle to realize the socioeconomic rights of street vendors. And what's inspiring, at least for me, is that our workers really persevere and they negotiate not only to improve the working conditions of their members, but also of the sector as a whole. So I hope that answers your question, Sonia.
It does, Nash. Thank you so much. And thank you for really laying out all of the challenges that workers are facing and still organizing in spite of those challenges. I wanted to give you just a couple of minutes to also, if you wanted to highlight any specific examples of how StreetNet's members are organizing, especially for climate action, I wanted to give you a chance to kind of lift up some of those stories.
Thanks, Sonia. So I'll give you 3 major examples of this. The first one is from one of our founding members. It's SEWA in India. So SEWA is an association of women workers in the informal economy. And just this year, they actually piloted a program covering heat wave insurance. So I think this also points to how timely and relevant Dr. Parsons' research is, because this is clearly being felt by the sector. And so this heat wave insurance is meant to enable members to cope with extreme heat situations and build their resilience to withstand the impact. So the pilot was introduced early in the year and it covered 52,000 members from different trades. So this is not necessarily just for street vendors, but it covers all the sectors that SEWA works with in the 22 districts that they identified. And since they piloted that, what we've seen is that more than 46,000 of their members, so 88%, received benefits from this new insurance scheme. And because of that, they were able to access income support during the severe heat waves. The insurance also, having this kind of insurance also allows members to avoid choosing between protecting their health, purchasing medicines, feeding their families, or achieving some kind of financial security. So it's a very inclusive approach. And because it's SEWA, they also specialize in how to do this among vulnerable women. So even their approach is very inclusive. And this is one way that they think they can really promote equity and social justice, especially when we talk about a concept like just transition. So that's one example. The other example I wanted to share is this exchange that's happening between our affiliates in Bangladesh and Cambodia. So I think a few months ago, our affiliate in Cambodia was able to visit Bangladesh precisely to have this field visit to understand what heat stress looks like and how our Bangladesh affiliates organize to mitigate these effects. And I think they will also do a follow-up activity early next year, to go to Cambodia and also see how the Cambodian workers are dealing with this. And this to me it feels innovative, even if it's very simple, because what happens is precisely what Laurie was talking about earlier, how we're not really able to harness the expertise of workers and their knowledge of their own experience. But this can usually happen when we put them in the same room and get them to exchange with one another. So that's important. And the last examples I wanted to share, these ones are really, I struggle to share these examples because they feel like additional burdens on the organizations, but it's just to explain that in the absence of any support from government or any support to the sector actually mobilizes to help themselves. And so these kinds of mutual aid were provided by our organizations in Malawi, so MUFIS Malawi and UNICAB in Brazil, because of Cyclone Freddy, which happened in 2023 in Malawi, and because of the extreme flooding in the south of Brazil this year. Both of our organizations really tried to provide in-kind and some monetary support for their members. And again, it's crucial to point out here that the people who are providing the support, the organizations, are organizations composed of people who are also experiencing these kinds of threats. So it's really, when we think about this climate question and labor, it really points to the fact that workers are forced to help themselves. And that's why it's important that we have strong unions. Thanks, Sonia.
Thank you so much, Nash. And I really want to underscore this point that you made about how important it is for workers to not only be able to organize within their sectors and within their borders, but how important it is to be able to organize collectively beyond that, across sectors, share good practices across borders, really, especially given the urgency of the climate crisis and understanding how creative workers have had to get to organize and bargain for their rights. I just want to remind all of our participants that we have the Q&A function. You'll see it at the bottom of your screen. We received a lot of questions over social media. I've gotten a lot of emails as well. We will do our best to consolidate questions, knowing that we're not going to be able to get to all of them. We'll continue the conversation over social media. I want to just have a very quick lightning round as we give people more of an opportunity to put their questions in the Q&A box. So for each panel, just 1 to 2 minutes, if you could address policymakers, employers, or allies in the broader climate justice movement, what recommendations or messages would you share? And what would you want them to know about organized labor? We'll just go in the same order. So I will start with Dr. Parsons.
Yeah, sorry.
Perfect, thank you.
As I hope I got across in the presentation, I think what we're about in this work is all about specificity. So I really think we should move away from single top line policy and top line narratives about what needs to be done, and be much more targeted in our approach to really locate the sources of maximum heat stress and to deal with them on a kind of case by case basis. So that does involve a different approach to what has generally been the case. In general, to the extent that heat stress legislation exists, in the vast majority of cases, it's been about ambient temperatures and kind of threshold temperatures, and about when it's possible to work over a certain limit. In certain kind of high risk sectors, you have more sectorally specific things, such as if you're working at very high intensity, there's the proportion of time that you're allowed to spend working at that intensity based on the ambient temperature. That's about as sophisticated as it gets. But what I would certainly call for is much more detailed attention to the data of what's actually happening inside workers' bodies, so that we can have a nuanced and more effective way of dealing with it. And this actually comes, I hope, from years of experience of trying to advocate for these things, which is just, I'm trying to make this as open a door as possible for policymakers and for brands and for industries to push, because ultimately we've tried to show that this doesn't have to cost a lot of money. You don't have to put aircon inside every factory, although obviously we'd like it, but this is a question of, like, we're giving you kind of interventions which are practical, targeted, low cost, and are based on the organization of labor, which is a really powerful tool which has been much neglected in the realm of adaptation to climate change. And it should be at the center, alongside a much more data-driven approach of how we approach this issue of heat stress under climate change moving forward.
Sorry, I was having trouble unmuting myself. Dr. Parsons, thank you so much. Somla, I'm going to turn it over to you.
អរគុណទៅស្នើអញ្ចឹងតកតងនឹងមុនខ្ញុំសូមលើកឡើងអនុសាសន៍ខ្ញុំសូមលើកបញ្ហាបន្តិចតកតងទៅនឹងបញ្ហាស្ត្រីនៅក្នុងវិស័យកាត់ដេរដោយសារយើងឃើញខ្ញុំគ្រប់គ្រងដោយអ្វីណាស់បានលើកដែរសហជីពដែលខ្លាំងគឺការចងក្រងសមាជិកបន្ថែមជានិច្ចហើយនឹងការចងជាបណ្ដាញហើយខ្ញុំចង់លើកបន្តិចតកតងទៅនឹងបញ្ហាស្ត្រីដោយនៅក្នុងប្រទេសកម្ពុជាក្នុងវិស័យកាត់ដេរយើងឃើញថា 85% ជាស្ត្រីក្នុងវិស័យកាត់ដេរហើយក្នុងហ្នឹងបញ្ហាបំរែបំរួលអាកាសធាតុគឺជាបញ្ហាមួយដែលហៅថាជាបញ្ហា ដែលកើតឡើងច្រើននៅក្នុងរោងចក្រហើយជាពិសេសចំពោះស្ត្រីដែលមានផ្ទៃពោះដែលគាត់ជួបប្រឈមបញ្ហាខ្លាំងនៅកន្លែងការងារចា៎ហើយយើងដឹងដែរថាបញ្ហាកើតឡើងនៃគេហៅថាភាពតានតឹងនៃកម្ដៅវាធ្វើឲ្យមានការកើនឡើងនៅអំពើហិង្សានិងការបៀតបៀននៅកន្លែងធ្វើការក៏ដូចជាអំពើហិង្សានៅក្នុងគ្រួសារដែរអញ្ចឹងខ្ញុំលើកឧទាហរណ៍ជាក់ស្ដែងដែលយើងជួបប្រទះថាអំពើហិង្សានៅកន្លែងធ្វើការនោះវាកើតឡើងទៅលើស្ត្រីដូចឡរីធ្វើបទបង្ហាញអញ្ចឹងយើងឃើញថានៅពេលដែលសីតុណ្ហភាពនឹងកើនឡើងក្តៅធ្វើឲ្យស្ត្រីគាត់កម្មករទាំងអស់ប៉ុន្តែជាពិសេសស្ត្រីគឺគាត់ចាប់ផ្ដើមធ្លាក់ចុះនៅផលិតភាពហើយយើងឃើញថាបញ្ហាអស់ហ្នឹងកើតឡើងយុវជនខ្លះគាត់អត់បានដោះស្រាយទេគាត់បែរជាទុកចោលគាត់គិតតែពីផលចំណេញដោយសារកត្តាទាំងអស់ហ្នឹងហើយយើងឃើញថាក៏មាននៅពេលបញ្ហាភាពតានតឹងនៃកម្ដៅឬក៏បំរែបំរួលអាកាសធាតុហ្នឹងយើងឃើញថាស្ត្រីជាផ្នែកមួយជាជនរងគ្រោះនឹងកុមារមិនថាចំណាក់ស្រកឬក៏អំពើហិង្សានៅផ្ទះដែរអញ្ចឹងយើងឃើញថាអំពើហិង្សានៅក្នុងគ្រួសារយើងជាទូទៅអំពើហិង្សាដែលកើតឡើងហ្នឹងនៅពេលដែលគេហៅថាចំណូលធ្លាក់ចុះនៅការបំរែបំរួលអាកាសធាតុកម្ដៅហ្នឹងធ្វើឲ្យអត់មានចំណូលអញ្ចឹងហើយវាឈានទៅដល់អំពើហិង្សាក្នុងការនៅគ្រួសារមានការចំណាក់ស្រុកការជួញដូរផ្លូវភេទក៏ការជួញដូរកុមារដែរអានេះបញ្ហាទាំងអស់នេះជាបញ្ហាដែលកើតឡើងជាក់ស្ដែងតែម្ដងហើយអញ្ចឹងសម្រាប់ថាតើអ្វីដែលសហជីពយើងត្រូវធ្វើអញ្ចឹងកន្លងមកମାନେសហជីពមានតួនាទីសំខាន់ក្នុងការដើរតួនាទីក្នុងការចូលរួមចូលតុចរចាដោះស្រាយធ្វើយ៉ាងណាឲ្យមានជួយដោះស្រាយបញ្ហារបស់បងប្អូនកម្មករមិនចាំបាច់ដល់ជាការចរចាជាសមត្ថភាពរួមធំទេសូម្បីតែអ្វីដែលជាកិច្ចបន្ទាន់សម្រាប់បងប្អូនយើងហើយថាតើសម្រាប់សារដែលខ្ញុំចង់ទៅនិយាយគឺជាទូទៅអ្នកពាក់ព័ន្ធសំខាន់មែនតើអ្នកពាក់ព័ន្ធនឹងអ្នកណាខ្លះភាគីមានភាគីនយោជកជារដ្ឋាភិបាលការសង្គមស៊ីវិលអ្នកពាក់ព័ន្ធទាំងអស់នោះហើយព្រមរួមទាំងកម្មករទាំងអស់ដែរអញ្ចឹងថាទាំងអស់ហ្នឹងតាមរយៈអីគេចាអញ្ចឹងដូចជាយើងឃើញថានៅក្នុងប្រទេសនីមួយៗយើងតែងតែមានគេហៅថាស្តង់ដារគេហៅថាគណៈកម្មការថ្នាក់ជាតិអានេះជាផ្នែកមួយសំខាន់ថានៅពេលដែលមានអំពើហិង្សានៅកន្លែងការងារសហជីពគាត់មានតួនាទីសំខាន់ក្នុងការចូលតុចរចាដើម្បីដោះស្រាយជួយទៅដល់សមាជិកចុះនៅពេលដែលមានអំពើហិង្សានៅក្នុងគ្រួសារវិញអញ្ចឹងវាពិតជាលំបាកណាសម្រាប់សហជីពដើម្បីឈានចូលទៅដល់ស្រាយអញ្ចឹងបានន័យថានៅក្នុងគណៈកម្មការបម្រែបម្រួលអាកាសធាតុថ្នាក់ជាតិឬក៏ក្រមបច្ចេកទេសហ្នឹងគឺត្រូវមានវត្តមានសហជីពដែលសហជីពព័ត៌មានសហជីពនេះជាផ្នែកមួយសំខាន់ក្នុងការដាក់សម្លេងដោះស្រាយនៅបញ្ហារបស់បងប្អូនកម្មករហ្នឹងមិនថាគណៈកម្មការថ្នាក់ជាតិឬក៏ថ្នាក់ក្រោមជាតិទេត្រូវមានវត្តមាននិងសម្លេងរបស់សហជីពនៅចូលនៅក្នុងការបង្កើតគោលនយោបាយដែលតាក់ទងទៅនឹងអាកាសធាតុឬក៏បញ្ហានៃភាពតានតឹងនឹងកម្ដៅចា៎នេះមួយទៀតនយោជកត្រូវតែគេហៅថាគ្រប់នយោជកមិនថានៅប្រទេសកម្ពុជាឬក៏នៅបណ្ដាប្រទេសផ្សេងទៀតទេដូចគ្នាបានន័យថាត្រូវគោរពតាមនៅច្បាប់ជាតិក៏ដូចជាអនុសញ្ញាអន្តរជាតិនៅសិទ្ធិសេរីភាពក្នុងការបង្កើតឬក៏ចងក្រងសហជីពឬក៏ការចរចាជាសមូហភាពត្រូវចូលតុចរចាជាសមូហភាពក្នុងការឲ្យមានកិច្ចព្រមព្រៀងរួមដោយចរចាដោយមានភាពស្មោះត្រង់ដើម្បីទទួលបាននៅលទ្ធផលគេហៅថាឈ្នះទាំងអស់គ្នាជោគជ័យទាំងអស់គ្នាហើយតើភាគីណាទៀតដោយភាគីខាង brand ជាអ្នកដែលមានឥទ្ធិពលខ្លាំងក្នុងការជួយទៅដល់បងប្អូនកម្មករក្នុងការដាក់មានក្រមសីលធម៌នៅតាមបណ្ដារោងចក្រអញ្ចឹងនៅតាមបណ្ដារោងចក្រហ្នឹងអញ្ចឹងបានន័យថានៅពេលដែល brand មានអំណាចឥទ្ធិពលក្នុងការបង្កើតឲ្យមានគោលនយោបាយឬក៏កិច្ចព្រមព្រៀងប្រាប់ទៅតកែគាត់នឹងអនុវត្តតាមហើយទាំងអស់គ្នាដែរយើងឃើញថាទាំងនេះត្រូវតែមានការចូលរួមនឹងសម្លេងសហជីពនៅគ្រប់មិនថាគណៈកម្មការថ្នាក់ជាតិឬក៏ក្រោមជាតិចា៎អានេះអ្វីដែលជាសារដែលចង់បានចា៎អរគុណច្រើន
Thank you, Somlai. And Nash, we'll make sure that you get a chance to jump in here.
Thanks, Sonia. I think I'll be brief, and I'll start first of all by saying that I can only speak in my capacity as an organizer. But the one thing that really has to change, and this really applies to all of us, is that we have to stop working in silos. I think it's become very common that when we talk about labor issues, we only talk to people who work in labor spaces. But when you have a challenge like a it's not even just climate change, it's really a crisis. You have a climate crisis that affects all of us. And the problem I see is that we usually only invite climate specialists to talk about these challenges, whereas the effects are felt by all of us across the board. So I think the message that we're learning, at least from experiencing these things, is that it's important that we are more creative in how we organize and who we bring to the table. For example, working with an academic is not something that's typically done in labor spaces, but now I'm glad that it happens. You know, we have to engage universities because we as the, let's say, as the organizers, we don't have time or energy or resources to do these kinds of research. So it's great when somebody like Lori does the research and really wants to work alongside us. And also just to be creative again, and in imagining how we can do union organizing. I feel like the future of work and the realities have changed in the last decade alone. And unless we're able to really, you know, think these issues through together, we'll still always be put in these boxes where we'll only invite you because we're talking about informal work, or I'll only invite Somalai because she's working in unions, or Lori because he's working on heat stress. I think we really have to find ways to be in more of these conversations, which is why it's great that we're also represented in New York Climate Week. And perhaps the most important is really, this is a call also for those of you in the audience who see yourselves as workers. I think it's high time, because we live under capitalism, that you also strengthen the unions, or see which unions you can be part of, and recognize that this is really something that's drastically changed over the past 3-4 decades. Worker power is shrinking, and a lot of people who are making decisions for us are not even as affected as we are by the decisions that they make. So I think this is really a call for us to be more engaged in this kind of labor struggle, which really, for me, encapsulates the motto that we have in StreetNet, which is nothing for us without us. So if we are trying to work on issues that affect workers in the informal economy, it should not be me as the organizer who makes these arguments for them. It has to be them. And we have the capacity to include them in these spaces and get them seats on the table, and governments also have this mandate. So I think these are things we really have to push for, because in the future we need stronger unions. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Nash. I think that was a really beautiful way to round out the lightning round. I also want to really highlight that all three of you touched on the importance of worker organizing and making sure workers can not only freely organize, but also bargain, and how important it is that workers' organizations are at the table to negotiate over climate-related issues. So thank you all for touching on that. We received so many questions. I want to appreciate Nash and Somalai for squeezing in some comments about gender, because we got a lot of questions about the gender dynamics. Dr. Parsons, I just want to give you actually an opportunity, and you don't have to have the specific statistics in front of you or anything like that. But if you did find a gender dynamic in your data collection that you might want to share, I just wanted to give you the opportunity to kind of respond to the overall questions about how we're seeing the gender dynamic play out.
Yeah, thanks for raising that. I mean, so yes, I think it's good. It's good, and absolutely right that so many people have raised this issue, and I'm really glad that I have other panelists to kind of talk about this and show that we're certainly not neglecting it. There is a reason that I haven't gone into gender so much in this particular case, and the reason for that is that in the case of this, although we absolutely did collect data on gender, I should say. However, the reason that I'm not presenting it is because in these particular sectors from which we draw these data, they are already quite extremely gendered in their population makeup. So actually teasing out the gender dimensions of, for example, the garment sector is not particularly easy, or you can do it, but then like you're comparing one very big thing with one very small thing, and it's not ideal statistically, because as someone I said, 85% of the sector is female, at least. I think in our sample probably close to 88%, nearly 90%. And actually, once you break down your remaining 10, 12, 15% of male workers, they do quite different jobs to the female workers. So because of the gendering of the makeup of these industries already, I think it needs further thought in before actually kind of making like real claims around this gender dimension. So I would say that this is absolutely not a question of neglecting or forgetting about it. It's more like this is something that really needs more attention. We have it, we have the work, but it's not happened yet. It needs a kind of more concerted focus on that area. So yeah, I mean, I think this is definitely, in terms of the data we've produced so far, or presented so far rather, I think it's an acknowledged and clear limitation because we haven't gone into that gender dimension enough. We haven't forgotten it, and watch this space, there will be more.
Thank you. That's very valid point about the gender dynamics of the sectors themselves. So one of the first questions that we have here is, in addition to the ability of workers to actually organize, what have you all found as being some of the factors that enabled workers to actually successfully bargain over whether it's heat stress agreements or any sort of other improvements that are in relation to climate impacts? And even if it's, for example, Nash, even if we're not talking about collective bargaining agreements per se, what allowed for a more enabling environment for bargaining collectively? So I will start with Somalai. If you have any examples of what you saw as factors that enabled bargaining over heat stress agreements, if there were any common factors.
ចាអរគុណច្រើនមែនទែនលោកស្រីតកតងទៅនឹងថាតើកត្តាអីខ្លះដែលជំរុញឲ្យមានការចរចាឲ្យមានប្រសិទ្ធភាពទោះបីជាវាមិនមែនជាបញ្ហាចរចាជាកិច្ចព្រមព្រៀងធំជាការពិតនៅពេលដែលយើងឃើញថាសហជីពដែលខ្លាំងនៅពេលដែលសហជីពចងក្រងសមាជិកកាន់តែច្រើនមិនថានៅក្នុងប្រព័ន្ធក្រៅប្រព័ន្ធនេះនៅពេលដែលសមាជិកយើងកាន់តែច្រើនធ្វើអំណាចសហជីពកាន់តែខ្លាំងអំណាចសហជីពកាន់តែខ្លាំងយើងក្នុងការចរចាចូលតុចរចាទោះបីជាចរចាកិច្ចព្រមព្រៀងរួមឬក៏ចរចាចំណុចតូចក៏ដោយងាយស្រួលក្នុងការទទួលបានជោគជ័យនេះជាផ្នែកមួយហើយជាផ្នែកមួយទៀតដែលផ្នែកសំខាន់នៅពេលណាដែលបងប្អូនកម្មករជួបប្រទះបញ្ហានឹងពិតប្រាកដបញ្ហាប្រឈមជាក់ស្ដែងដែលពួកគាត់ជួបពិតប្រាកដជាតម្រូវការចាំបាច់ជាបញ្ហាជាក់ស្ដែងជាតម្រូវការចាំបាច់សម្រាប់ពួកគាត់អញ្ចឹងហើយជាចំណុចដែលធ្វើជំរុញឲ្យពួកគាត់ចូលតុចរចាទទួលបានជោគជ័យដែរបានន័យថាមានការចងក្រងមានសមាជិកបន្ថែមហើយជាបញ្ហាជាក់ស្ដែងជាតម្រូវការជាក់ស្ដែងពិតប្រាកដរបស់ពួកគាត់ដែលគាត់ចូលតុចរចាជាក់ស្ដែងហើយអ្វីដែលយើងឃើញថាមិនថាបញ្ហាសម្រាប់កម្មករទូទៅទេហើយកត្តាកន្លងមកហ្នឹងយើងក៏ឃើញថាអ្វីដែលជាបញ្ហាជាក់ស្ដែងពិតប្រាកដខ្ញុំលើកជាឧទាហរណ៍ថានៅពេលដែលជាក់ស្ដែងតាមបណ្ដាហោងចក្រដែលអាកាសធាតុក្តៅកម្ដៅខ្លាំងធ្វើឲ្យមានកម្មករខ្លះក៏មានការដួលសន្លប់ក៏ឈឺបន្តអញ្ចឹងហើយជាឧទាហរណ៍មួយដែលបង្ហាញថាអានេះវាកើតឡើងមែនហើយសម្រាប់កាត់ឡើងពិតសម្រាប់ពួកគាត់អញ្ចឹងហើយធ្វើឲ្យជំរុញឲ្យមានការចរចាហ្នឹងទទួលបាននូវភាពជោគជ័យ ចានេះជាផ្នែកមួយដែលយើងឃើញថាហើយក៏ជាឱកាសល្អដែរដែល
Thanks
យើង
so
ឃើញ
much.
ថា Yeah,
So
thank you.
I just wanted to give Nash 30 seconds if you want to lift up any key factors.
I think for us, it's really that we've really trained our workers. So again, I speak as an organizer. Even if this is your great contribution to the way that the work is done, don't underestimate the power of training your members so that they have the confidence to negotiate. And also, it's important to clarify demands, because what often happens at the negotiating table is you bring all the issues to the table. But if, for example, we focus on specific issues like heat stress within a particular demographic, within a particular locality, then you're more likely to achieve goals. And finally, I think it's also been about creating better relationships with local authorities. And this, this really boils down to just how we deal with each other, not just in our roles in society, but just as people. Most of our workers who have achieved their demands have done so because they were able to really transcend these kinds of artificial boundaries with local authorities and people that they don't normally work with, but now can work with. So yes, thank you.
Thank you, Nash. So we're at time, but I just want to recognize that heat stress is only one aspect of how workers are experiencing climate change. It results in occupational safety and health impacts at work, and it's an issue that follows workers back into their communities. When people can exercise their rights as workers without repression, not only can they improve their own working conditions, but they can raise standards across workplaces, industries, and across society more broadly. Unions are recognized within the United Nations system as having the unique role to engage in dialogue with governments and employers on policies and practices that impact workers. Climate change and the decisions made in response to this crisis absolutely impact workers, and unions must be recognized as critical stakeholders with a rightful place at the table, as all of our panelists have described. Thank you so much to each of our panelists. I encourage you also to follow the Solidarity Center on social media to continue seeing stories of how workers around the world are using unions as one way of dealing with the climate crisis. You can find us on most major networks by searching at Solidarity Center. Thank you again to all of our panelists, and thank you to everyone who joined us. We'll do our best to answer as many of your questions on social media as we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.